Hello, and welcome to part one of our Vectorworks 2026 drafting tutorial. This part is going to really just go through the Vectorworks workspace and identify some of the tools, etc., that we'll be using, just so you can kind of familiarize yourself with the space a little bit. When you open Vectorworks, it should basically look like this, with the exception of this little shape that I've already drawn. And I just want to go through and talk about some of the different areas here on the screen. So we're going to start up at the top with the menu bar. It's pretty standard, like you would see with most software platforms. We're going to start over with Vectorworks, and here it would just be a check for updates, get information about the software, etc. But real quick, we're going to go down to Preferences and click on that. And then make sure that General is highlighted. These are just some appearance things. We can leave all of this as default. At least that would be my recommendation initially. You can change it later on as you get more familiar with the software. And click on Edit. And here we want to make sure that Offset Duplications is unchecked. So if there's a check mark here, go ahead and click it again so that that's not checked. That'll be easier for our purposes. And then we'll click OK. Everything else can just stay as a default. Moving over, we have File. This is the usual thing: new files, open files, save as, etc. Import, export. But we're going to come down to Document Settings and then go into Units. This is our Units dialog box. We want to be in Dimensions. We want our units to be feet and inches. So for instance, if this is already in inches, we're going to change it to feet and inches. Our rounding style wants to be fractional. So we're going to click here, and our fraction precision should be 1/8 of an inch. Everything else can stay as a default, and so we're done with that. We can click OK. Moving on, the Edit menu is what you would expect: undo, redo, copy, paste, that sort of thing. View is where we start to get into the Vectorworks specific applications. This is really kind of how things are viewed or looked in the software. So you have zoom, you have layer and class options. We'll get into that later on. The projection of things, how things render, but probably most importantly for our purposes, viewports, which we'll get into when we start getting ready to print drawings. Next is Modify. Basic rule of thumb is Modify is where we adjust two-dimensional objects. Most of them are grayed out right now because nothing is selected, but anything that we need to do two-dimensionally generally falls under Modify. Next is Model. This is where we affect three-dimensional objects. So once we get into doing some 3D things, we'll work more in here. Next is Spotlight. If Spotlight is not appearing on your screen, that's just fine. We'll fix that in just a second. There are a variety of workspaces that Vectorworks has. Spotlight is the one they've designed to work in an entertainment environment, specifically with lighting. So a lot of those tools exist in here. Next will be Tools. Most of this we're not really going to get into except for our workspaces. So if Spotlight does not appear in your menu bar, come down to Workspaces and select Spotlight, and that will change. Next is Text. There are a variety of ways of editing text in Vectorworks. This is one of them, where we can choose fonts, font size, font style, alignments, etc. Next is going to be Window. Again, not one that we're going to use a whole lot, aside from needing to turn on and off palettes occasionally. Vectorworks works in palettes, and it's basically a group of tools together. So here's our basic tool set. There are other tool sets that we have in here. This is our attributes palette, and so on. So if something doesn't look on your screen the way it looks on mine, check under Window and Palettes and make sure that things are checked and selected. Next one is Cloud. This is really for document sharing. We're not going to really get into any of that, at least for this class. And then Help, there's a search bar that'll take you to various spots in the manual, or link you to Vectorworks University if there are things that you need that for some reason we haven't covered in class. Next is going to be our view bar, which is this whole section up here at the top. The very first one is going to be top plan. That's our current viewing mode that we have, which means we're looking at it like a ground plan, just bird's eye view looking right down on top of it. There are a variety of options once we get into some more three-dimensional things, so you can do a front view, right view, bottom, etc. So if I go to front view, now we have the front view of our little Lego piece here. I can do a right isometric view, and so on for when we're working on things three-dimensionally. For now, we're just going to keep it in top plan. Our next section over is layers and classes. We'll get more into this more later on, but Vectorworks allows you to work in a series of layers, which are kind of like sheets of paper on top of each other. So when we get more into drafting a theater, we can do things like have a layer for the theater floor plan, and then a layer for the scenery, a layer for the soft goods, and so on. And basically becomes a stacking order. Classes, there's only a couple in here because this is a new document, but this is where we would put information in terms of how specific objects look, line weights, color, that sort of thing. Next is going to be visualization. When we're in the top plan view, we're going to be in the wireframe mode, which is what this looks like here. There are a variety of other ones, but we're going to stick with wireframe for our 2D top plan view. And then when we go into three-dimensional views, say like a right isometric, it's going to go into shaded, and we want to keep it there. That's the one that renders the fastest and takes the least amount of computing program memory. You can change it if you want to something like Sketch, and it'll make it look more like a sketch. But for now, we're just going to keep everything in shaded and a top plan view. Next is going to be our text. This is our text editor. Again, there's a variety of different ways of editing text, but here's where we can change our spacing and our style and our alignment, choose fonts, choose font size, bold, italic, underlined, text justification, the usual sorts of things that we might want to manipulate text with. Next over here is going to be snapping. This is a feature that Vectorworks has that allows more precision of your drafting. So if I come down to our Lego piece and come right to the corner, it tells me I'm snapping to that endpoint. Or maybe I'm going to come over here and I'll snap to the midpoint of that line, so that when I draw a line to attach that, if I'm on the midpoint, I can click there, and I know that that line is touching that piece of our Lego piece. Snapping can be suspended or paused with this button. That doesn't happen very often, but you may be in a situation where there are a number of objects close together and it keeps trying to snap to things that you don't want it to, so you may suspend snapping just briefly for that. That's about its only reason. Next is going to be our zoom. I use this pretty much never. There are easier and faster ways of zooming in and out in the software. Your middle, the mouse wheel, rolling it in and out will zoom the drawing in and out, or also two fingers on the trackpad will do the same thing. These icons down here can be useful from time to time. One of them is zoom to page area, which zooms out to the printable range that you have set. And the other one is a fit to objects, if you need to quickly zoom in or out to to all of the objects that you have drawn in a drawing, it will do that. Next one is our scale. We're currently drafting in 1/4 inch equals a foot on the particular layer we're on, which is our design layer 1, and that's just fine for now. Okay, over here on the left, we have our basic tool palette. These are basic tools. We pretty much always want to keep these open. They're the ones that we reference most often. It's things like, I want to draw a line, right? I can select line and just click and drag as far as I need to go and click again, and I've put a line into the system. Or I can draw a rectangle of a specific size. You'll notice when you start drawing a line or a rectangle or any of the shapes really, you get this floating datum bar that gives you information in terms of, right now it's 7 feet 11.5 by -3 feet 6.5. That's how big that rectangle is. If I press tab, I go into that floating data bar, and now I can tell it I want this to be 8 feet, and I can hit tab again, and I want this to be +4 feet, and hit enter, and now it has drawn a 4x8 rectangle for me. We're going to go into all of these tools more specifically and how they work. The two things to know are, if you hover over a tool, you'll get a little dialog box that tells you what the hotkey shortcut is. So for the circle, it's 6. And it'll give you just a brief description of what the tool does. Each of the tools have different modes and different ways that they can be used, and those are up here. So for instance, for this rectangle, we're in corner to corner mode. You saw that earlier where I went corner to corner to draw the rectangle. There's a center out mode, so I'm drawing from the center of the rectangle out to create it. And then there's a 3-point mode, which is good for drawing rectangles on an angle. So I'm going to click once, I'm going to find the angle. In this case, we'll say 30 degrees. I can click again, and then I can extend my rectangle out. So each of those has a variety of different modes. For instance, if I click on the circle, there's a half a dozen of them. So if a tool is not operating the way that you think that it should, or the way that you want it to, be sure and check up here to see if there's a better mode option for your tool. For now, I'm going to go back to the selection tool, which is this arrow, which is also the hotkey of X. I would say get used to that. You will use that quite a bit to get back to this. Next is our other tool sets. Open that up a little bit. Vectorworks has a variety of tool sets in each of its workspaces that do specific things relative to that workspace. So for example, right now I am in a lighting tool set. I can insert a lighting device. I can insert an accessory if I want. I can set up a focus point. In the audio video, I can hang a line array. I can put LED walls in. In the rigging, I can set truss and motors. In the event space, I can do curtains and stanchions and stages and that sort of thing. So we'll get into these when we start doing more specific projects, but know that there are more specific tools as we move forward. Below that, I have the attributes palette. Those are specifically to affect lines that are objects that are being drawn in the moment. So again, I'll go back to a rectangle, and if I draw out my rectangle like so, if I want to fill that with a different color, I can simply select the solid fill color. I'm in Classic Vectorworks. You may be in Active Document, but you can click on this drop-down menu to go into the Classic Vectorworks colors. Those are going to work the best for us. And I'm going to say I want it red. Great. And then my pen is going to be solid, but I want it in a different color as well. So we're going to make that be in a green. And I want that line to be thicker, so I'm going to select my line thickness and go down to, say, 39. Now when I deselect that, now I have a red circle with a thicker green outline to it. If you change the fill color of a three-dimensional object, it will fill it in the three-dimensional views, but not in the wireframe view. So for instance, if I were to select this rectangle portion of our Lego piece and turn it red, at the outset it doesn't appear that anything has happened, but if I go into a right isometric view, now the fill color of my Lego piece is red. Couple of other palettes for you to know about that we'll definitely be working with. One of them is the Resource Manager. I have it docked up at the top of the screen. That's where I like to keep it for easy access. And I'm going to ask that you do that as well, just so that it's easier for everybody to navigate the software in the same way. Once you dock it up at the top, it will collapse on itself, but to open it, you can just hover over it. This is where all sorts of different symbols and libraries exist. So for example, if I open up the Vectorworks libraries and I open up entertainment and I open up lighting and instruments, and then I have all of these different manufacturers and all of their excuse me, different fixtures that they make and symbols for them. And this exists for all sorts of things, not just lighting, right? There's different audio and visual tool sets, there are symbols, there's power and rigging. This is really just for the entertainment side. Various types of attributes. We can find different gradients that exist when we start coloring things, or different hatches that exist if we want to start giving something some sort of texture. All of that exists within the Resource Manager. We'll be referencing that quite a bit. And then when I come out of it, it will collapse back on itself. Next is the Object Info palette. That tells you the information about the object that's currently selected. If I hover on it right now, it tells me no selection. I don't have anything selected. Okay, so I'm going to again select the rectangle part of our Lego piece, and now go up to Object Info, and it tells me that this is an extrude, which means it's a three-dimensional object. Its class layer is none, and the design layer is design layer 1. Those are just the defaults that we have on our blank document. Here's where it tells me things about the size. So it's the X is 4 feet, the Y is 2 feet, and it's extruded 2 feet. Its bottom Z is 0, which essentially means it's sitting on the floor or on the ground. Whereas if I select one of the cylinder parts of our Lego piece, it's going to give me a lot of that same information. What its extrude size, what its radius is because it's a circle, and its bottom Z is 2 feet because it's sitting on top of that rectangle. If I just go to my rectangle tool and draw a rectangle, now I can come up and it tells me what the width and the height is. Well, I got close, but not quite what I wanted to be, so let's make this 3 feet square. So I can click into this dialog box and type 3 feet. It's important to know that Vectorworks works in defaults in inches, so if I want 3 feet, I have to do the apostrophe. Otherwise, if I wanted 3 feet, I could just type in 36 as 36 inches. We're going to tab down and make this the height 3 feet as well, and hit enter, and now it readjusts the size of my square or my rectangle to 3 feet by 3 feet. These little buttons here will dictate where you're moving the rectangle from. So right now we're in the top left corner, but if I want to affect it from the middle and I want the width to now be 8 feet and I want the height to be 4 feet, it'll do it from the middle out. Our X and Y has to do with where it is on the drawing itself relative to our ruler here up at the top. So I'm going to say that I'm in the middle and I want the middle of that rectangle to be right on 0, 0. So I'm going to come over here and tell it I want that at 0 and 0. And now the middle of my rectangle is in fact at 0 and 0. The other two tabs in the Object Info palette are Data and Render. We'll get into those a little bit later on, but definitely less frequency. You're going to stay in the Shape tab the majority of the time. Again, as soon as I take my cursor off of that, it will collapse back up on itself. My next one is Navigation Layers. This is where you can affect things like classes and layers and sheets and viewports, all things that we'll get into later on. The big one is layer options. Right now I'm in gray snap others. This means that anything that is drawn on a layer that is not my active layer is going to be grayed out, but I can still snap to it with my cursor. Generally speaking, we want to stay in Show Snap Others so that we can see everything that's been drawn and we can snap to it, but we won't affect anything that's not on our current active layer. We'll get into more of the navigation palette when we get into more specific drawings. So that's the basic layout of the workspace. Next, we're going to go into how we use some of the more specific tools and modes, and we'll keep moving forward.